RSpec Part 2. So here we're going to actually play around with a few more RSpec tools, Factory and for creating test data, and Spork for studying a single Rails testing environment and take advantage of that so that you can have a lot faster testing result. And guard is actually whenever you make a change, you save the change and testing will be automatically run. Then Capybara. This is in fact the most important topic of this presentation. So Capybara lets you do integration testing. Okay, so I'd like to actually cover at least Capybara in this presentation and the lab. So RSpec tools, Factory Goal. So Factory Goal gem is replacement of default fixtures. With a straightforward definition syntax, and it does support other features such as multiple build strategies and support for multiple factories for the same class, including factory inheritance. So it's a lot of features. We're not going to be able to cover all those features. We're going to actually just get the taste of the basic features. So steps for using Factory Goal is install Factory Goal gem and create a factory. You can actually create a factory on the spec directory. So you can create on the spec directory, or you can actually have another directory called the factories, and then you could actually create underneath it. Okay, so Factory Goal will actually search for any factories related file under the spec directory. And now you can use a Factory Goal in your spec for creating test data. Okay, so that is exercise 1. So exercise 1, so let's go to, so we are going to add Factory Goal gem. So here we go to gem file, and we are going to, I don't have a shooter, but that's fine because I'm not going to use it. So we are going to add this one, Factory Goal, okay, and then save the change. And then we are going to perform a spec and bundle install. So it will install Factory Goals. Okay, and then we should be able to now create factories.lb file. So we are going to change, and so under spec we are going to create a factories. Oops, what is a spec? Spec, I said spec, and new file, and we are going to add this factory code, and we are going to save it into factories.lb file. So basically this is a way of creating student. Okay, so I create a single student, and I create a single book as well, and then I can also define the sequence. So whenever email needs to be created, I want to use this notation. Okay, so it's going to be the n is going to be incremented. Okay, the same thing for student. So any name I want to create is student, and name, it will be student 1 and student 2 and things like that. Okay, so that is the factories LB file, and then what we can do is we are going to so instead of actually creating like using student new or something like that, now we can actually use a Factory Goal create. Okay, so here let's actually use factory so the the spec, and what is a spec and the model. So here we are going to just use this code, okay, and then save the change, and then you can perform the testing, and it should work fine. Yeah, in my case I do not have a book to be, I didn't perform the migration for books, so I'm gonna actually change this one. I'm gonna just comment for factory for book, And yeah, so that, yeah, so I, at this point, I'm gonna just create a student. So I just save this guy, and then I should be able to spec, and it should be able to create a student from the factory. Okay, so again, it's actually creating from factory call rather than creating using student new, and that should succeed. Okay. Okay, so that succeed. So that is basically the testing, and you can also actually, instead of creating default students, so default students in this case, the name is Sang. If you take a look at the default student, I'm creating Sang and SS Shin at jpassion.com age 30 as a default student. But if you want to create the student with a different name and age or something like that, you can certainly create this way as well. Okay, and then that should work fine. Okay, let's actually move on to the presentation. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys do the lab on Capybara, but factory goal and the Spork is I'm gonna just demonstrate. Okay, and then move forward. Okay, so next is the Spork. So what is a Spork for? Well, the thing is that every time you run the testing, it actually creates a brand new Rails environment, and that takes time. Okay, so Spork loads Rails environment just once, and all subsequent RSpec testing will use it. So it will save time for the Rails environment creation. So if you're doing lots of testing, which you should, eventually it will save time. Okay, so the step for using Spork is this: you install the Spork gem, and then you're going to configure Spork configuration, generate the Spork configuration, then you run the Spork, and then you're going to actually run the specs. Okay, so basically what happens is that when you run the Spork, it's actually creating a Rails environment, and it stays there. And then you're going to actually use a different terminal. From the terminal, when you run the RSpec, it's going to actually talk the Spork Rails environment for testing. Okay, so it doesn't create its own. So that is exercise 2. I'm going to actually demonstrate that. So we are going to include Spork. So let's go to gem file, and we are going to add this Spork. And oops, and we save the change, and we're gonna perform bundle install. So it will install Spork. Okay, and then we are gonna create the Spork configuration file. Okay, and by using Spork -- bootstrap. Okay, so we're gonna say Spork -- bootstrap. Okay, so it's going to create the spec. Let's see, where does it create it? Oh, it basically, the add contents to spec helper RB file. Okay, so if you now take a look at the spec helper RB file, then you can see it actually added the Spork related configuration file. Okay, so that's what I just did here, and now we are gonna run the Spork. Okay, so when you actually run the Spork, okay, I'm gonna actually use this so that we can actually see. Okay, so we are going to run bundle exec and Spork. I should be able to say just Spork in this case. Okay, all right, so we're gonna run the Spork, but now what you can see is that Spork is actually running some kind of slave servers, and those are the ones that actually handle the testing. So now what we can do is we can actually go to again, same in the application. Now we should be able to run the spec. Now, in order to take advantage of the Spork, you have to actually say -- DLB. Okay, so it's basically indicating I want to use the remote the Spoke server for testing. Okay, so here I'm going to say RSpec spec -DLB. Okay, then it will actually take advantage of a server. Okay, all right, so you can see it actually take the test and it actually runs it, and then you got the result right away. Now if I actually run it again, it's gonna be pretty fast. Okay, so I don't have to actually restart the Rails server every time I'm running the spec. Okay, so it basically saved the time. Okay, so that is the idea. Now, if you are using Spoke all the time, basically you want to add this -DLB into your configuration file. Okay, so in that case, basically all you have to do is just the RSpec and spec. Okay, so let's actually do that. So here I'm going to the RSpec configuration file, and I'm going to say -DLB and save the change. Okay, and then I should be able to say just RSpec like this, and it will still go to the DLB. Okay, all right, so that is the Spoke. Okay, now let's move on to the guard. So what is guard? Guard launch specs automatically and intelligently when files are modified. So basically what you want to do is, whenever you modify your testing code or even your source code, you save the change and you want the testing to be done automatically, right away. Okay, so that is guard. So usually you want to use the Spoke and guard together, and that could actually save time. Okay, unfortunately, this somehow I couldn't make it to work. I used to work and it doesn't work anymore. So I'm gonna just give you a sense of what it does, and then we'll just move on. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna skip the lab because somehow I couldn't get it to work. Okay. So let's move on to Capybara because this is a bit more important. So using Capybara with RSpec. So what is and why Capybara? Capybara helps you to test the web application by simulating how a real user will interact with the application. Okay, so key benefits is, by the way, you don't have to actually have the Rails application server up and running to test it, and it works out of the box. Okay, and it provides reasonably intuitive API that mimics the language that actual user would use. Okay, so you might get confused at this point, so I'm going to actually show you an example in a few seconds, so don't worry about it. So the things you can do with Capybara is basically navigation between pages. You can click the links and buttons and see whether it actually works as expected. Interacting with the forms, you can actually fill up the forms and send it, and you can perform query operation, finding operation, scope operation, scripting operation, and debugging. All these things are in fact provided through Capybara. So you are basically simulating user interaction with the Rails application. So it is actually working at higher level than model testing we have seen so far. Okay, so let's so I'm actually trying to show you example as soon as possible. However, there are some caveats, and it's not that much of a big deal. Capybara, being integration and acceptance testing framework, it does not expose low-level details like a request and response object, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, so okay, so this is the slide I was actually looking for. So basically, if you want to simulate a user going to, let's say, project URL page, you can say visit project. And if you want to perform, let's say, post comments path and passing post. Okay, so this is like creating a new post. Okay, you simulate the user interaction, and then you can test whether the result that come from the server in fact is what you expected and things like that. Okay, so, and you can also get the current path of the browsing session for test assertions. So you can say current path has to be return value of this guy or something like that. Okay, so you can simulate the link clicking and buttons. Okay, so the click link, this is simulating user clicking this particular link. Okay, Well, this ID of the link, you can specify the ID, or you can actually specify the link text. And this is simulating buttons, so I'm actually clicking a button. This is the same thing as, oh, this one is either links or buttons. If you're using on, it should take both a link as well as button, and this one is button value. Okay, so this is actually filling up the form. So you actually fill up the first name field with John, and you are filling up the password field with secret, and the description field with this. And this is for choosing a radio button and checkbox, and unchecked checkbox, and attach file, and select on. So pretty much everything you can do as a user can be simulated with Capybara. So this is why we call integration testing, because it actually intercepts that user interaction, and then it will actually call all your Rails code. And including the response. It actually goes through the complete request and response cycle, and you could do this Capybara testing, integration testing, without actually having actual server up and running, meaning without your actual Rails application up and running. All right, so finally we have a lab. So that is something I want you guys actually to try it out. So let's go to exercise 4. Okay, so now we're actually gonna use a different application. We're gonna actually use a device app, okay, that we have worked on in the security authentication lab that we did yesterday. Okay, so that is what we are going to use. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go to device. Okay, so this is device app. All right, so we need to modify the gem file to use Capybara. Okay, by the way, we are going to actually use the latest version of RSpec Rails, and then Capybara is 2.5.0. That's again pretty late. Yeah, that is actually up to date version as well. So we are going to add this guy to the gem file. I probably have this one already because I did testing this morning. Okay, so you just add this guy. Okay, so I'm using the latest version of RSpec Rails and Capybara 2.5.0 and Selenium, the WebDriver. So this is something you want to add, and you're going to actually perform bundle install. So in my case, I have all those things already installed. So you just do bundle install. So in your case, the new version of RSpec Rails 3.4.1 and the Capybara 2.5.1 will be installed in your system. Okay. All right, so that is done, and then we need to generate the RSpec configuration file. Okay, so we are going to do Rails generate the RSpec. Okay, and in my case, I probably have already those two things generated, so it might actually ask me whether I want to override or not. Okay, that's fine. We'll just override it. And as you can see, the Rails RSpec Rails actually create not only spec helper.rb file, but it also creates a Rails helper.rb file. Okay. And I'm gonna just overwrite. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to require Capybara RSpec into your Rails helpers.rb file. Okay, so yeah, okay, so this is the one. So we're gonna actually go to spec and Rails right here, Rails helper.rb file, and we are going to require Capybara RSpec plugin. So we are gonna actually add it right here, and we save the change. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna modify the RSpec so that we are using documentation format and order default as well. So let's take a look at the RSpec. Let's add these two. Okay. Oops. I want to add these two. And save the change, and then we are going to Okay, now the routes.config file. So if you take a look at the routes.config file, config. Yeah, so you probably have the bunch of things that we change for customization. Okay, so delete those things so that you just have a device for :users. Okay, because the testing we are actually writing is for using the default the path. Okay, so just remove those things. So all you have to do is in fact device for :users. Okay, all right, so that's what I have already. In your case, you have a bunch of customization, so you want to actually remove those things. Okay. All right. Now we are going to So if you display the routes, we want to actually make sure that for new user registration, it actually goes to user sign up. Okay. Because the testing code that I have in this documentation assumes that you are using this guy. Okay. All right. So that would be the case. Now we are going to write the capybara, what is called the spec. Okay, so we are going to create on the specs. So on the specs, we're going to create the new directory called features. So okay, and the features we are going to create sign up spec. So we're going to actually try the sign up spec. We're going to create the sign up test code. Okay, so here we are going to just copy this code, and I'll explain what those things are, and save it, and then we're going to actually save it as this is for sign up spec RB file. So here we are basically testing the sign up. Okay, so subject is basically subject is basically pointing to the page. Now this is actually something that describes sign up page. Sign up page is basically you are going to go this new user registration path. Okay, so if you think about the new user registration path, rake route, that is for sign up the request. Okay, so basically we are simulating a user going to that sign up page, and then the return page, the response should have a sign up as a string, as a content. So that's basically testing a very simple test. Okay, so this is the new user. Yes, I'm gonna actually use I'm gonna just move forward, guys. So now we are going to so here we have to actually perform the migration test as well. So make sure we create the tables for testing environment. For device app, we didn't do that yet, right? Okay, so so we are going to create the tables for testing environment for device app, and then we're going to perform the testing. Okay, so it should actually succeed. Okay, so once this is done, we're going to actually do the testing. And now let's do the test. Spec. Okay, all right, so it succeed. All right, just for the sake of the testing, if you want to actually say XXX, right, and if you do that testing, then obviously that should fail, right? Okay, and just to make sure that I'm not cheating. Okay, so this one should fail. Okay, so that failed. Okay, it doesn't have any sign up XX. Okay, all right, so that is actually pretty much the procedure you have to follow. And then let me actually talk about a few more testing here. So this one is actually sign up process. So basically the sign up process involve user go to the page for sign up, and then with the valid information. So user is then enter username with the Sang Shin, and the password is foobar, and password confirmation is foobar, and then the user will click the button of sign up. Okay, and then the response should have welcome content, and it also should have a sign out link, okay, with this path. Okay, and it should not have link of sign in, because the sign in because user has already signed in, so it should not have a sign in, right? So this is for testing sign up process. Okay, and that should work fine. And we also want to test once so here followed by sign out. If user wants to sign out, meaning if the user if user click the sign out, then it should have a link of sign in, meaning if the user sign in, the page that gets displayed should now have a sign in, right? So we are basically testing all these things. Okay, the next one is test if sign up with a valid data increases user count. So here we are going to see testing of the user count. So the user actually go to user registration, and then signing up with a valid information. So basically this is the same thing, and then we are testing whether user count is incremented by 1. So if the new user signed in, the user count should be actually incremented by 1. So that's basically the testing. And then we are actually doing a bit more refactoring. So because both tests are doing the visitation of this URL, we might actually take that out as the before. Okay, and in terms of also sign up, we are going to creating from the sign up, we are going to create the submit. So we should be able to use click button to submit. That's actually more straightforward than having these sign up things. Okay, so you can certainly do that. Okay, and the same thing with the submit, and run the test, and that should work fine. Okay, so let me just do one more testing, and then I'll let you in fact actually do, I'm gonna just do the this testing. I'm gonna actually create this guy, and the change here, I'm gonna just test signups here, and of course this one needs to be okay. So I'm gonna save this change, and this one should succeed. Oops, yeah, spec. And I'll let you guys actually do the lab. Okay, so right now it's 12:20 minutes, 12:20, and I'll give you guys to do this lab in 10 minutes by 12:30. Okay, I'm gonna just wait until this one returns success. Okay, so these things have succeeded. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording.